Hi folks, this is Dr. Rob CYWES. I am the carb addiction doc, and as I've been thinking about what my patients are doing, what my folks that kind of buy into our representation of a change in biology, a change in lifestyle, what I want you to understand, and so many people out there don't understand this, they see me as a physician, they see me as an internet gum flapper, but more than anything else, I'm actually my own patient. In other words, I topped out at over 300 pounds. I've lost a lot of weight. I'm down about 102 pounds as I'm sitting here right now. And that was 23, 24 years ago. This is an ongoing struggle. And the struggle is twofold. The struggle is to stay away from our drug of choice, which is sugar and starch, snacking and overeating. And that third one is actually my biggest battle. The carbohydrates are fairly easy, but what I call Rottweiler syndrome is the one that I battle with the most. However, in the addiction model, when you get rid of things, when you are moving away from a lifestyle that you created, and let's face it, folks, 300 pounds is not that I tripped and fell into a tub of ice cream. 300 pounds is a lifestyle. It is a dominant way of life as a foundation of who you are as a human being and how you manage your emotional needs. That's why treating obesity with some calorie reductive diet never works, because it may get you to lose a little bit of weight, but it doesn't change the fundamentals of who you are and how you got to be that way. So weight loss treats the consequence, or treating diabetes treats the consequence of chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption, but it doesn't treat the addiction itself. And so many people who treat one addiction become a victim of another one. They go from one instant gratification methodology to another. You quit smoking, you gain weight. And so often we fall into that trap of not being aware, so focused, heavily focused on the removal and the destruction of our relationship with a toxic drug, that we don't focus on replacing the benefits of that drug in our lives. So when you're eating carbohydrates, when you're snacking, when you're overeating, there is very, very powerful benefit to that in terms of how it instantly helps you to take care of anxiety, stress, depression, anger, fear, frustration, boredom, pleasure, all of the things that go to emotional tension. So in this video, I wanted to take you down some of the changes I've made, not for you to emulate them, but for you to understand how this works. Am I perfect? Hell no, I'm not. Do I struggle? Absolutely. Do I get it right most days? Yeah. Am I proud of what I'm doing? Absolutely. Am I introspective to my mistakes and places where I can improve? Absolutely. But not to the point that I'm beating myself up. I try to objectify my mistakes. I celebrate my successes. But when I objectify my mistakes, it is the purpose of objectifying them is ownership. Yeah, I made that mistake. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Not going to beat myself up. Okay? There's no place for self-recrimination. It happened. The second question is, why did it happen? And after you've owned the mistake, you analyze why it happened, and then you say, okay, the next time I'm in the same situation, how can I handle this differently so that the same mistake doesn't happen again? Ownership, analysis, correction. That's how we deal with mistakes. And the sooner we can own that problem, the less likely we are to relapse. Now, one of the things I talked about is when you remove carbohydrates and snacking as a way of life, that leaves an enormous void. A ketogenic diet is how to replace that with real food. I'm not going to talk about that today. There are plenty of other ways to do that, other talks on this channel that discuss that, or you can set up a visit with Sheryl. She will go through our return to nutritional eating, both by pattern and by content. However, the next important thing that I want to talk about is if you look at the average obese person, the average type 2 diabetic, in their emotion management toolkit, they've basically got carbohydrates and cobwebs. And if you go on a strict keto carnivore diet like we have, now you've got cobwebs that don't effectively manage emotional need. So how do I manage things? And the most important consideration for me is to be proactive about everything. I get into trouble most of the time when I do things spontaneously or in the moment. When I plan things ahead of time and I execute those plans, I'm going to do things really, really well because the emotional overload isn't there. So when I look at my day from an emotion management perspective, the first most important thing is to anchor your day with 1 or 2 meals that you preordain. So I have a particular practice. In fact, if you may have heard it in the background here because I'm out of coffee and I'm brewing some more. So you might hear that machine in the background. And that's part of my ongoing lifestyle that makes me actually kind of proud of myself. But the first thing I do is in the late evening, I set up my coffee machine for the next morning. I'll discuss that in a second. But as I'm doing that, that's a trigger because it's an everyday event in my life. It's a trigger for me to turn to my wife and say, hey, what does your day look like tomorrow? When and what are we going to eat tomorrow? So I knew last night what I was going to have for lunch, and today it happened to be no lunch. But you know what? I haven't died of anorexia yet. So we plan lunch, we plan dinner, we plan 2 meals a day. And I plan that ahead of time. Not only do I plan what I'm going to eat, because now I've got to defrost the steak or the shrimp or whatever it is. So that planning ahead is important. But planning what I'm going to eat, I also plan when and where I'm going to be. And the rule for my meals is the only time you want to be eating, is sitting at a table with a plate of food and a knife and fork. If you are too busy, if you don't have the ability to do that, and you're in ketosis, the default option is to not eat. The default option is to skip that meal and go all the way through to the next meal before you eat. I don't have time to eat. I've got to go through the drive-thru. I've got to work and I'm going to sit here eating by my desk. All of that is feeding your emotional need, not your nutritional need. Now, if you look like one of the Olsen twins, by all means, go ahead and eat whatever the hell you can because you're underweight. But most of us are struggling still with a decrease in weight, the improvement in our health. Plan those meals ahead of time. And if you are preemptive in your meal planning, you're going to make a nutritional decision. If you have to make a choice in the moment, if you go to a restaurant, you're looking at the menu, you're hungry, you're tired. If you come home, what am I going to eat? Now you're going to make a selection between crystal meth, crack cocaine, and heroin. You're almost always going to make an emotional decision that's not in your best interest. So plan those meals ahead of time. The second thing that you want to be able to do, and I've talked about this a lot, is plan that bridge drink. It doesn't have to be perfect by internet standards, but it should be calorie-free. Calorie-free, not just carb-free, but calorie-free. The only exception is if you want to put a little bit of MCT oil in, if you want to put a little bit of butter in, you want to put a little bit of heavy cream in, those are absolutely fine. But if you're trying to drop weight and you're stalled out, get rid of that MCT oil, those calories that you put in your drinks. So when I'm trying to drop weight, I cut the milk out of my coffee. But I do put heavy cream in my coffee for the flavor, and also the heavy cream keeps me in ketosis and helps me to ride through the day and helps me to get to an OMAD day. Although 2 meals a day is what I plan, I usually, like today, am ending up OMAD, 1 meal a day. So that's the eating part. Not here to discuss that in great detail. I went down that rabbit hole. So you want your bridge drink because the human brain can focus for around 15 to 20 minutes at any one time. Then it needs a break. And instead of a cigarette, you have some gum. Instead of that snack, you have your bridge drink. And that can be water, it can be a Diet Coke, it can be a Relight or an LMNT drink, it can be coffee, it can be tea. I don't care what it is. But develop a relationship with it so it's a special moment. The reason I drink is not necessarily for hydration. It's as that mind-cleansing moment. It is as that little distraction, like I'm using my hands right now a lot because I'm tired, and the more tired I am, the more I use my hands. So I'll try to calm that down. However, those are little quirks that help my brain to focus. And that bridge drink is such an important thing to give me a little bit of serotonin relief so that I can refocus. Now, the other important thing about self-care is, number one, for people like myself, people like you most likely, it should be effort-based. In other words, the endorphin release should be generated from within by what you're doing, not from some external source, not from approval from others, but from approval of yourself, and not from some substance that comes from outside of you, but some action that comes from within you. And that is the healthiest form of endorphin activity. It's called an effort-based or an action-based emotion management system that you can be unconditionally proud of. And it requires effort up front, the commitment of effort and time up front, and the reward on the back end is pride in self, pride in act. But it's all the other further rewards are emotional relaxation and also the ability to connect with and deal with certain issues in your life that create emotional tension. I had a big fight with someone. Well, let me go for a walk and figure it out. Now, the bridge drink we use within periods of focus. So at work, I'm drinking or sipping on my bridge drink. At night, I'm sipping on my bridge drink. That may be some chicken broth or even a Fresca. However, anytime the pace of your day changes, you need to do something to take care of the emotional tension that built up in that last segment of your day. And it might be a small requirement, it might be a big requirement, but you want a toolkit that becomes a natural part of that as you can preordain what the pattern of each day looks like. So in my own day, and I love this, and I think this was just brilliant. I learned it in Poland a little bit ago. This guy created what he calls the 555 Club. And this is a guy who, for a variety of reasons, I don't want to go into it, you can Google it in Poland. He said, I'm going to get up every day at 5:55 a.m., set my alarm, and go on the internet, do my internet stuff. And at 5:55 a.m., I'm going to begin my day because it buys me a block of self-care time before I have to start work at 7 or 8 o'clock. So the 555 Club is something I joined, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Right here on my cell phone, my alarm is set to 5:55, and the key thing about that alarm is you set it the night before. So it means that you've predetermined that is when you want to get up. How often don't we hit that snooze button in the middle of in the morning when it goes off? But what we're doing then is we're shortening our self-care time, and we're increasing the amount of chaos that we step into when we get out of bed because we delayed getting up. So one of the principles, one of the rules I have is I predetermine when I'm going to get up. And right now, and for the next foreseeable future, it's going to be at 5:55 a.m. or earlier, irrespective of what happened the night before. And that allows me to begin my day with a bit of pride. Hey, look at me, I got up. And literally, it takes 10 seconds to overcome the exhaustion of getting up at that time. No, I'm not going to get up. But if you hit that snooze button, you're screwed. So 5:55 a.m., the club is there. Join me. You can text me. You can give me a shout on Instagram. I can promise you I am up at 5:55 a.m. First thing I'll do is go to the bathroom and do my business and brush my teeth. I've already set my coffee machine for the next day, so I'll go into the kitchen, I pour our family's coffee. Now, the rule in my household is the person with the lowest blood pressure gets to sleep in a little bit. Well, the reality is that's always my wife. My blood pressure is good, 110/60 this morning, but I get to pour the coffee because my pressure is usually higher than hers. However, hit the alarm at 1:55, check the blood pressure, check my saturation, and if I need to, I check my heart rhythm, because an arrhythmia at my age is something I want to catch early. So that's a little bit of my biology. I probably do that 4 or 5 times a week. So on the weekdays, we check our blood pressure, cuffs right there next to the bed, put an oxygen saturation monitor on, or hold my little cardiac EKG machine to look at my heart rhythm. Once that's okay, I'm feeling good about myself, get up, do my business, go to the kitchen, pour my coffee, and I take my fish oil. It's the only supplement that I take is a 500 milligram DHA tablet. I take 2 of them. It's 1,000 milligrams because I worry about Alzheimer's. So that's the only supplement I take. I take that with my first early morning coffee, which is coffee with a little bit of heavy cream in it. I also set up my wife's coffee when she gets up, and I pour my son his bottle of whole milk with heavy cream, and I put a little bit of fish oil. He's 2 years old. Put some fish oil in that as well because I worry about Alzheimer's and I worry about brain development. That's my morning ritual. When I first get up, then the next thing we do is my dog gets a bowl of milk, just like his dad. His dad gets a little bit in his coffee. He gets some in his bowl, and I give him his food and top up his water. And while I'm sipping on that first couple of sips of coffee, he's having his milk, and then we go to the front door and we go for our walk. Some days I take my dog for a walk. Some days my dog takes me for a walk, but we never do not go for a walk. Even when it's piss pouring rain outside, we'll go for a short walk. And you know what? Here in Florida, it's one of the most glorious things to be out there in the piss pouring rain. It doesn't get that cold. Again, it's that masculine badge of honor that I like to wear. But it's just one of those silly things. So all because it's wet outside, it doesn't mean it's not a good idea to go out. But if you don't, find something else physically active to do. When I'm outside, while my dog is doing his business, I'm not even aware of the fact that I'm walking. I have no idea of how long or how far or how fast I'm going to go. That's predicated by my dog and his bowels. But while I'm out there, I'm allowing my subconscious free rein. And my subconscious comes up with thoughts and ideas that pertain to what's happening in my life right now. And as James will attest, he usually gets a text sometime between 5:55 and about 6:30 in the morning while I'm on my walk, because that is the text of the Instagram post that I post excuse me, on our YouTube channel at Carb Addiction Doc. There's always a thought, there's always a post, there's always a picture that comes from that walk, because it defines how I'm feeling, what's important for me, and I share that with you folks. So perhaps it triggers you to get angry at me, to say, you're wrong, or to say, wow, I never thought of that way. But it becomes part of your day journey. And that's why we post on Instagram. And clearly it resonates because our following is growing quite significantly. But James out there takes my quote that I text him, does his artistic beauty to it, and then posts it for us. When I come back from that walk, I have my shower, I get dressed, and if time permits, I try to find a half an hour playtime with my son, Rian. That playtime is as important for him as it is for me. And then I go to work. So I've put emotional money in the bank in the early morning. Often when I'm having that cup of coffee, I'll have a moment of prayer, or really a connection, a meditative connection with a higher power, where I'm trying to sort through some difficult issues. But you notice the theme is doing things that relax me, doing things that give an endorphin rush, something I'm proud of, where it's physical activity, something creative, stupid, silly little creative things, like trying to make a smiley face with the milk I'm pouring in my coffee or whatever it may be. And then that spiritual or meditative moment. Those are aspects of self-care that are so important for me. And now that my son is getting to be a human being at the age of 2, that human interaction, when he's waking up rested and he always wakes up with a big smile on his face, that first interaction with my son, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than this old man and his little baby. Go to work, and if you have put emotional money in the bank in the early morning, then if that arsehole driver cuts you off while you're driving, hey, how are you? Off you go. Go have a bad day by yourself. I'm not going to be part of your bad day. But if that arsehole driver cuts me off and my morning started with chaos, I'm probably rushing up next to him, giving him the driving finger, yelling at him, and taking his angst and making it part of my day that I then need a tub of ice cream to make me feel better about. No. If I put money in the bank in the early morning, I'm surfing over everything that life is throwing at me, no matter how unexpectedly devastating that is, because I've got emotional money in the bank that I can spend through the day. I then come to work. I've set up my calendar that I'm go all the time. I've got my coffee going with me. I interact with people all day long, which gives me pleasure, gives them pleasure. And I do my medical doctoring thing, or I do my surgical thing, operating. I work through lunch because on purpose, I want to be OMAD. On the weekends, when I've got some downtime, I'll do lunch. But if I'm busy and I'm working and I got my coffee and I'm in ketosis and I'm fat adapted, I don't need that lunch. So it's go until the evening time. And then as soon as I down tools, remember, anytime the pace of your day changes, you want to do something for emotional restitution. So at the front door is my dog's leash and my walking shoes. He won't allow me to come into the house. Why not? Because I trained him not to. We go for a walk before we enter the house. And now my little son comes running out and let's go get the mail. And we go get the mail. We look through the mail. Usually not very pretty. But then we go for a walk. And he comes and my wife sometimes comes and we take the dog and everybody is just chilling out and relaxing. I haven't even walked into my house. And the reason for that is because if I flop down on the couch exhausted, I'm probably not going to take my dog for a walk, because I've started my unwinding within the house. But if I do that at that interface between coming home and going into the house, that's the ideal. And sometimes we'll do some more exercise, we'll do some gym work, we'll do some weights, we may even go for a little jog. It's whatever we have thought we were going to do at that time. But that's my physically active space. Then once I come back from that, however long that took, I interact with my wife. We talk about the day, we break down events, we do the business of our marriage and of our family. We take care of that. either she or I then makes our dinner. And that dinner is eaten sequentially. So in the kitchen, we prepare what we want to eat. We're pretty much carnivore at home, unless we order food in. So it's going to be the steak, it's going to be the shrimp. She'll cook it, I'll cook it, however that worked out from the night before. And if she's cooking at that time, I'll be setting up my coffee machine for the next day and deciding what we're going to eat for the next day. If I don't, I do that just before I go to bed. But we then, in the kitchen, take whatever food we've prepared, and it's usually a lot because we're hungry, we've over-prepared food. We then cut that food in half, 50% or less goes on a plate, and we take that plate to our dining room where we've set up the dishes with the dishes we got for our wedding. Why should I keep those in a cupboard somewhere and that someday my son, when I die, gives it away to Goodwill? No, use the best dishes, make it sexy. On Friday and Saturday nights, if we're home, there's always flowers on the table. We dress it up, we make it pretty. There's nice placemats. Right now, this month, we've got Halloween placemats, Halloween decorations, because we want to feel good at our table. It's a special event. And we all sit down and we chat and we talk and we have fun eating. Now, the amount of food we're eating is pathetically small. But when we finished our plate and Rian has said more or I'm done, he signs that I'm done or I want more. When everybody is finished, we then do something. We leave the plates on the table. We may play a game of cribbage. We may go out to the front of our house, to the back end of our house, pot around in the yard a little bit. We may build on the puzzle that's on the other end of the table. We do something that's relaxing as a family. We may even do the laundry. We do something. And then 5, 10, 15 minutes later, we come back, we clean those dishes, and it's a family affair. We clean the dishes, and we look at that food that's left in the kitchen. Am I still hungry? Do I want more? And by all means, we eat more if we need it. But most of the time, you know what? I thought I needed that. Screw it, I'm full. Because that time frame and that relaxation has given the hormones from my belly, the GLP-1, the GIP, the peptide YY, the leptin, to go back to my brain and say, dude, you're full. And if I'm wrong, I've got yesterday's meal I can dine in on. So the point of eating sequentially is I allow my belly to tell my brain how much I actually needed, rather than my brain telling my belly how much it's going to get, and I overeat. Particularly if I'm emotionally tense, that overeating has a sense of fulfillment that is more emotional and nutritional. Once we've done the dishes, we then go ahead and do something relaxing. I may go through my Instagram feed and look at the comments and respond to them. I may play with my son. We usually shower at night. I shower with him, or we bathe him and he gets to throw water all over the place and throw toys around. But it becomes a family interaction. And then at 8:30, usually that's his bedtime, I get to read a book to him in Afrikaans, which is my native language. Janae gets to read 2 English books to him, and he goes to bed. And then she and I spend some husband and wife time together. I'm going to leave that right there. But that happens. And I may make some broth with that. I'm going to be very cautious about what I say here. But we relax. We don't have TV at home. We don't have TV at home. We do have Netflix or whatever it is. And occasionally we may watch a movie or something like that, but we don't have TV. We don't have TV at home. Think about that. Okay? And then we go to bed. And I try to be in bed by 10 or 10:30 with a 5:30, 5:55 or 5:30 or 5:55 wake up. Usually it's about 11 o'clock, but that allows me, one of the most important things that we neglect in this busy life is adequate sleep. And as a physician, one of the most difficult but boldest moves I ever made, and I'm a surgeon, about in end of 2016, I said, you know what, I'm not taking call anymore. I told the hospital, I've done my time, I'm not taking call. Now, being on call is a service, and I've paid my dues. I've done that for decades. However, putting myself first, knowing the value of sleep, knowing the fact that everything in my life is chipping away at that sleep, recognizing the importance of that, recognizing my importance to be in my son's life and my wife's life for a long, long time, sleep has become sacrosanct. It's one of the most valuable possessions we can give, or gifts we can give to ourselves. So I stopped taking call at the hospital. Every now and then I have to do that. But I get a decent night's sleep. 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours of sleep. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's my day. Am I perfect? No. I'm not perfect. But I work at this every day. I work at physical activity. I work at the creative arts. I work at my spiritual, my meditative relationship. And I work at trust with the important people in my life. Because as much as I love them, our relationships are strongest because we implicitly trust those 2 or 3 people that are close to us. And because we trust them, in those conversations with my son, in those conversations with my wife, I am comfortable taking the risk of being vulnerable and talking about things I'm ashamed of, struggling with the goal of working them out, not being condemned for them. But those relationships are so important in my emotional buoyancy, in my emotional life. And guess what I don't need? Guess what I do not need? I don't need carbohydrates. I don't need snacks. I don't need to binge eat. Because on purpose, with effort, I've given myself a life that I'm unconditionally proud of. And there's absolutely no reason you can't too, because you are not better than me. And I am not better than you. We are equal. We are the same. Because we are made that way. It's never about how much stress there is in your life. It's about how you handle it. And this strategy preempts and builds things to help you. Now, do I listen to music from time to time? Absolutely. Do I do other things? Absolutely. But that is my routine every day. Does it change? Of course it does. But see if you can stand in front of a camera. See if you can stand in front of a piece of paper and write down what your routine is. And if it's not dominated by self-care, you have a problem. If it's dominated by work, if it's dominated by other people's needs, that is your fault. That is your fault, not theirs. Put yourself first. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. If this helps and helps you to transform your foundation, I've done my job tonight. If you want help in any of these directions, give me a shout, text us, WhatsApp us, anywhere in the world, 561-517-0642. If you're WhatsApping, it's +1 at the beginning. +1 561-517-0642, and we can set up an appointment. Thank you for watching, and I hope this resonates.